Individuality, the quality or character of a person or thing that differentiates them from others of the same kind. If you struggle with being yourself, you probably aren't alone in that regard, especially compared to most. Everybody wants to be different because different is cool, but what's the purpose of being different? And how much different do I need to be? And at what point do we become satisfied with ourselves? I think we try to create different ways to be different. Hairstyles, lingos, buying habits, fashion, cultural practices, pronouns, I guess nowadays. But it's funny because even though a lot of people want to be different, they only want to do things when they see other people step out and do it first. And I think the biggest reason for that is it's just a lot easier to fall in line. In fact, the easiest thing to do in life is fall in line. It requires the least amount of thought, the least amount of introspection, and you get to rely on someone else or some other directive or narrative to influence your life. You get a nice, comfortable spot where you can look around at others doing the same thing. Meanwhile, those who don't do the same get looked at differently. When you constantly look at others for validation or to validate your position, it's just harder to grow as an individual. I think many times in life, we know that certain things aren't for us, or at the very least, it needs to be tweaked to suit our preference. Whether that's running a business instead of a 9 to 5, traveling or moving around instead of staying still, living spontaneously instead of repetitively, being a creative instead of a consumer, or just vice versa for any of those. All those things come with their own benefits and shortcomings, pros and cons, you get it. But if you're just going to fall in line anyways, you'll end up complaining about the life that you wanted, and then you'll be stuck with the one that was given to you. So I think one of the biggest steps to being an individual is accepting that you can't have everything or be everything. When it comes to me as a person, I don't really like groups or labels or just things that put me inside of a box just for the sake of it. I'm always trying to be myself first and foremost, but I've come to realize that you can't fully defeat conformity. You can only decide which versions make sense for you as an individual. It's extremely difficult to go through life just rejecting any and everything because you see other people doing it. But that's why you have to train yourself to understand how powerful conformity is. For example, just because something is a common practice doesn't mean it's the smartest thing to do. Everybody doesn't want the same things in life, and I've never understood why people get so mad about others not wanting to be like them. It's kind of weird. If something doesn't make sense for you specifically, then you should figure out what does. A lot of times, conformity comes down to what appears to work. If you see a group of people or even one or two people doing something and it appears to work, it's easy to be like, oh, I'll do that too, whether or not that action actually suits you. On the flip side, if you see some folks do something and it doesn't work, it's natural to say, I'm good on that too, just the way it goes. Sometimes I like to say, everybody's a hypocrite. An example would be the quote, comparison is a thief of joy. That's often said as a comforting reminder that we shouldn't compare ourselves to others, but that's usually only when we compare ourselves to someone doing better than us. When we want to feel better about ourselves, typically we compare ourselves to somebody doing worse. Because let's be honest now, it feels sweet when you're struggling, then you look over to your left or your right, and someone else is struggling too. Your car breaks down on the side of the road. Oh, look at them too. At least I ain't the only one, right? Or you ever failed a test in school and be salty about it, but at least if somebody else failed, y'all can get together and be like, damn, that study guy was raggedy as hell, wasn't it? And obviously, you got some people who want someone else to fail just so they can feel better. But that's more of a crabs in the barrel mentality. But I don't want to get into that. That's probably a little bit too deep for this video. But I'm getting sidetracked here. What I'm trying to say is, we want to stand out or be different in good ways, ways that make people notice and say, what's that? I want to be like that or do that too. You don't want to stand out in ways that are bad, but then again, I guess it really depends. Being different sucks when you're trying to make a way for yourself or doing something that others don't do, but when it works, everyone wants to copy it. I think that being able to have a vision or an ideal vision as an individual and also doing it in your own way is the ultimate goal. I think one of the greatest human mysteries is why people get so upset or bothered when others don't do exactly like them. I talked about this earlier, or at least touched on it. A lot of people see themselves as unique, but are as close to normal as you can imagine. Being unique is very difficult because whatever is the norm will constantly give you an internal battle and make you question whether or not you are the crazy one. Being different or unique needs to be balanced. For example, I think becoming a full-on contrarian is unnecessary. It just gets into the realm of time wasting a lot of the times because most people just do it to argue, or they just do it just for the sake of being different with no rhyme or reason. Why is it done this way? Does this fit the way I want to do things? Is there a better way to do it? Those are questions that I tend to ask myself, at least passively. Like when we look at individual activities or the way people spend their times while they're alone, most people only want to go to the movies with somebody. Just go by yourself. Most people only want to eat on occasions or go out to eat for occasions. Just try doing it by yourself for one night. There's a lot of small ways you can be contrarian or do things against the norm, and it actually helps you, right? I think it's very important to not be afraid to have your own viewpoint in life and ways about doing things. And one of my favorite things about making videos, for example, is that it's giving me a lot of clarity and peace of mind. These videos aren't exactly easy to make sometimes, but it is what it is. The thing about making them is that you have to be cool with having your own perspective on things. Some people are going to agree, some won't. And honestly, there was a time where I was like, I don't really want to talk because someone might tell me I'm wrong, but after 100 videos, I couldn't care less, to be honest with you. The folks that agree will be cool with it, and that's all that matters to me. For me, I've taken a stance of I ain't really trying to give advice or recruit people into the way I see things or even present what I say as, as certainly positive or negative, because ultimately it's up to interpretation. I just try to present the information and my perspective as is. The way I think comes from the things I've gone through and learned from and experienced, and the context is applicable to those who've seen something similar. I think many of us have reached a point at one time or another and said, nobody understands me. And obviously, there can be many aspects to that, but one thing to think about is everything we know about ourselves or think about ourselves is in our heads. All someone else will know about you is how you present yourself, what you seem like, or what you come across as. Like, just for a funny example here, there's a reason why some people you think who are the biggest assholes of all time, there's a reason why they're loved by so many people. It's kind of a funny thing, like we might see them as one thing while other people interpret them as another. But that just is what it is, right? I think when it comes to understanding ourselves, there's a lot of interpretation in the matter. Even if you have a good grasp on yourself, you're the only person around yourself 24/7. So ultimately, being understood comes down to being comfortable in how we view ourselves. Sometimes I say, I'm glad there are less people like me. We need more serious folks or less serious folks. We need more outgoing individuals. We need more musically talented people. We need crazy people. Crazy people as in the ones who always have those crazy stories. We need all types of folks. Like, I have my place too, and I'm secure with that. A big goal for oneself is not being dependent on other people's approval and how they see themselves. It's very difficult for most of us to truly be independent individuals because we're still bound by what we know, the culture we're around, the people we're around, the media you consume. This is why people who feel like they're different still mostly do what everybody else around them does. It's all they know. It's hard to undo what we're accustomed to, even when it doesn't make sense. And it takes a lot of work and intention to break free from the factors that influence you. And so just going deeper into individuality, there was a certain term I learned recently. It's called Bohemian. And Bohemianism is a social and cultural movement that cultivates a way of life away from society's conventional norms and expectations. It was something that, as far as I know, started during the 19th century. And it was basically people who were artists and writers and intellectuals, poets, fashion designers, all those different things. And they just saw things differently and wanted to do things their own way. So it turns out that even back then, people saw what was going on and said, no, I'm good. I just want to draw and paint pictures. Now, it's a bit simplistic, but in modern times, we still have people like this, creators, musicians, artists. The thing is, many of these people end up as starving artists or misunderstood because they simply wanted to be different. In order to do that effectively in today's time, you either have to have either a little money and a lot of time, or a good amount of money so you can create time. So it's about finding that balance, I guess. The reason I bring this up is people have always wanted to be different or be themselves, whether it's the way they speak, the way they express themselves, the way they live, or the way they think. You ain't alone. Oh, and how can I forget the power of choices? Having choices in life is one of the most important aspects of individuality. It means you can't be trapped by your current circumstances. Being able to move and being able to walk away from bad deals or bad people and such things is definitely something I always want to live by and aspire for. And that's why it's good to be aware of those who try to remove your choices from you. Why? Because It's a very subtle form of control. By narrowing down your options and your choices, they can put something in front of you that seems appealing due to it being the only thing available. And finally, I want to wrap things up by talking about purpose. Another word I learned recently was Oubaitori. It's a Japanese idiom meaning to grow and bloom at your own pace. It's helped remind me to embrace uniqueness, trust my process and direction, and understand the terms I want to live by and striving to live by them. I joked about it earlier, but it keeps me in the mindset of being strategic about using comparisons. Oubaitori, individuality.